Hello.
Whoa, is
Hello.
this thing on?
Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome. Welcome
Welcome.
to welcome to Always Strikes Last, Age of Sigmar podcast. I'm Miles and I'm joined by my co-hosts Matt and Jack. Welcome to the show.
Good morrow, fellow people.
Yeah. Good to have you here. Witnesses to our slow, painful improvement of intros.
Oh
Welcome,
man.
glorious dregs. Glorious dregs.
So
Oh
good.
man. So you
Excited for
guys
a
see
podcast today.
you guys see the new models? All these
Oh my
sweet new
god.
models
They
coming
Oh
just
out?
man.
I feel like they leaked and then 30 seconds later they were on the community website.
Like every single Discord, it seemed like, or wherever. But yeah, that too.
Yeah.
And
Like,
they leaked the models I was least interested about, right? I want to see what the
yeah,
new
no.
rules for the new models are. I don't give a crap about a battle mage. I know it's not going to be able to send a tree lord into me with +4/7 or whatever to its
Yeah.
charge. Like screw that thing.
It's a fair point. But oh
But
man.
yeah, no, the new models look great. That's going to be a really fun army for hopefully somebody else to collect. I don't think I've got the steam, but we'll see.
But
Oh yeah.
Right?
Well, that's the thing. I kind of feel like I'm in the same boat. I look at them and I say, those are beautiful.
Mhm.
Not for me, a bunch of humans. At least at the moment.
Right? That's like every like I don't know, it's probably longer than 6 months, but it feels like every 6 months my brain is like, I should make Imperial Guard. And then I think about making Imperial Guard, and I'm like, oh no, okay, whew. But
that's
that's
when
over.
Oh
it's
yeah.
funny because it feels like every time I have that internal conversation as well, my Gene Stealer cult are like sitting in the corner going, "You
You're
need
like,
to paint
hey.
us. You need to finish painting us first."
They
Um,
always say that, but that'll never happen because there are too many of them.
it's yeah, there are too many of them. No, it is funny these releases. They finally found a kind of feel to the models where A, they don't look like they're from the old world. B, they don't look frumpy. There's no frills. And I know a lot of people are probably going to be upset about that. But, I remember when I got the old Empire
Mhm.
handgunners in what was it? Was that fourth edition or fifth
With their
edition?
little tights and their puffy shirts.
Yeah, I remember when
Yeah,
those released and I started that army. The box came with what, like 2 units of handgunners. Um, I know it had a cannon and something else. And I
sure.
was all about
Mm-hmm.
my super metal flagellants that were so expensive for just two models in a blister.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I am happy to see those times go.
Yeah.
Get those get those German design artifacts out of the way and let's look at these new whatever they are.
Well, I think podcasts that are maybe funnier than us have said in the past, it's like Sigmar is like, oh, I've recreated all the humans, and now you must dress like all of my dead friends.
That's pretty fair, right? Like, I mean, and it is funny to think of it as like Sigmar's historical preserve. Like, if you guys ever go to one of those like colonial villages where everyone has to
Mhm.
dress up in the period costumes, like
Mhm.
churn butter the old way, it's like that, but a god's version of it.
You will wear the poofy hats, and you will eat the soft pretzel, and you will like it.
I love it for just the quality of life the humans probably have because
Mhm.
you think about those costumes they were in, like these Renaissance style puffy, like frilled shirts and feathers and like tight tights. That
Mhm.
cannot have been comfortable in like 95% of the environments they describe, in
Yeah.
the Age of Sigmar. Like being in
Sure.
some burning Exian plane or some liquid metal thing or some like horrible Nurgle swamp in the realm of life. None of that is good for feather maintenance, and
No.
certainly probably a bit too humid for like puffy shirts.
And I just
Right.
I just imagine, an incarnate just running straight towards a line of handgunners. They're getting ready to flee, but they all have wedgies, so they're just waddling away in the quickest way
Oh,
possible.
yeah.
Yeah. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
Well,
happy to see that go. I'm happy to see it go.
same.
But if that is your thing, you can still, it looks like, there is like a 1-for-1 to all the new models. So if you wanted to still play with the soft pretzel aesthetic, if that is your jam, looks like you can still pull that off.
Yeah, and then these new models look interesting too. It looks like it's going to be just as static as it was before, like maybe a moving gunline army from what I've seen from the
Yeah,
models.
right.
So I mean
All
that's
those guys
Yeah.
with their little bulwark shields and their, little stick pistols.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so
That's
that'll
for
be
sure.
interesting.
Well, also the Iron World Great Cannon, beautiful little piece, but definitely does not look like a thing which is easy to move. And I think the leaked profile said what 3-inch movement, and all of its abilities are basically telling you to stay still or it will not be as good.
Yeah. So I
Yeah, I
mean
mean it works so good on the Cruel Boys.
but I'm
Oh
interested
man.
to see what if the book has more than one play style. Um, and obviously we're only seeing the models that they want us to see right now. This is me like crossing my fingers, waiting for the
Mhm.
giant spider tank that I really want to
Yeah.
see. That seems to be everywhere in all the artwork in the background. Um, but I really I Cities of Sigmar used to be this well, by the end of the latest book, it just seemed to be this massive book of the same units using minutely different rules, and
Mhm.
then your allegiance rules just crapped out on top of it, and then that was basically just a vehicle for taking your Stormcast army or your Lizardmen or whatever you wanted to bring in, right? Or Daughters of Cain or
Okay.
something.
It was
And
it was just a kind of a soup army, and all it really provided was the broth.
yeah, and I'm really hoping that this new book can kind of A, stand on its own, and B, offer more than one play style. I know we went into that like kind of diatribe with Beast of Chaos. We're like, oh, it's a
Mhm.
one-trick pony book, and I was really
Mhm.
just kind of disheartened about it. I have 50 Wild Riders that I would love to be able to proxy in whatever the new book comes out with, as long as it's not
Sure.
a static army. It'd be so nice to have more than one avenue of playing that army.
Well, I bet it will. I mean, obviously these new models kind of feel crusadey, like they're kind of moving along, trying to set up some Dawnbringer outpost or whatever. But aren't they still supposed to be supported in different cities, like Tempest Eye, or well, maybe the Phoenix one's gone now, based on all those all those
Yeah.
retirements. But at least in general, hopefully a couple things you can do.
Sure. The Phoenix Guard is really more of a ceremonial position at this point.
I would imagine.
It's like those guys with the tall hats that stand outside Buckingham Palace. I don't think those are real guns. I'm just gonna throw it out there.
Yeah.
I mean, either way, they're scary as hell. So
Yeah.
maybe they'll have a facsimile for the Phoenix Guard to be like, yes, don't worry about them. All of a sudden, they are terrifying.
Yeah, man. Maybe they'll come back in a big way. We can
Maybe
only hope.
they'll bring them out in the old world game, just bring them all back to square bases. Such a move.
Oh man.
Well, we could probably go on and on and on about these beautiful new minis, but much is yet to be revealed. Some of the rules are pretty spicy. Every one of the models looks cool. I know that like this whole Baroque feel and some of the cool characters like the, what was it, Whisper Blade or the Alchemist Warforger kind of had me drooling. And I definitely
I
dig
like
the
guy with
blasphemous vibes.
backpack guy.
The best model of the release is the little dino dog, the mascot.
Oh yeah.
Gargolian, is
I
that what they
want
call it?
yeah, Gargolian mascot or something. I want like 20
Nice.
of those. I don't even know what I'm going to use them for. I just want 20 of those models just to like
Nice.
have them placed randomly around, my abode where I can just tut tut and boop it and then
There
just,
you
go on my day.
go.
There's got to be no better place than the Mortal Realms to be like a dog or dog adjacent thing breeder. Like a lot of possibilities there.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, we crossbred this dog with spider swans.
Yeah,
It
what
can
is going to come
fly
out?
and climb walls.
Yeah. And it's really angry.
And like every one of these cities just has all of these things just rolling around like in the market, and no one pays any mind. Very normal.
Yeah.
There's like one kind of edge case city out there. It's like, yes, we crossbred our goose with a knife, and now
Yeah.
it's just goose knife.
Endless
So
possibilities.
good.
Well,
But this was not This was not actually the topic for today's podcast.
Oh, it
turns
wasn't.
out.
What was
No,
our
it wasn't.
topic?
This was just us jumping on the bandwagon of drooling over new stuff.
Yes.
Exactly. Jumping on the Pontifex caravan throne or whatever it is.
Right.
But yes.
Oh my god. No. Today we had planned, at any rate, to discuss the story so far, the state of the game. What is happening with Age of Sigmar? What is the deal?
Indeed.
Jack, go. Do it. What
All
is
right,
it?
all the
Answer.
Hot take now.
Yeah.
The hottest take, specifically, of course, for this particular episode, in this new weird world we find ourselves in the new GHB, right? We kind of talked about last time. We have a whole year of zany magic kazis, cool new tricks, battle tactics people aren't used to yet, grand strategies people aren't used to yet, and maybe some initial rumblings of how it's going to shape up to go off of. Seems like magic is good. Seems like magic is very good. Stuff I keep hearing about one place or another is that people are fearful of the soul blights. People are fearful of the croak. People are fearful of many other things, the KO. Yeah, I think some of those armies are having strong performances. But I feel like it's still really early days. I don't know, guys. What do you have for like initial impressions from things you've seen or heard in the tournament scene?
Sure. I mean, just some reactions I was thinking of as you were talking about, like, battle tactics are new and weird, and yet I don't feel quite as starved up for them as I was in the last book. Like there's like one extra easy one than there was last time, or it feels that way. I feel like I'm averaging like 4.5 versus like a 3.5, in sort of my casual learning games. Because at least with Nurgle last book, it was I was gooding 4 for sure, especially doing like the world's prep and stuff like that. And like 5 was like on a good day if the stars aligned,
That's
maybe
fair.
that's why we didn't win. But
yes, it's you, Miles. It's not them, it's you.
Where more people are getting 4 easily, and the 5 is coming around, and maybe we all need to learn how to counterplay other people's battle tactics a little bit better, because it's all kind of new.
But that's a fair point.
Do you feel that you're still using the same amount of book battle tactics, like army book battle tactics, allegiance battle tactics, if you will?
Interesting. Well, I recently was reacquainted with my carriage on Overlords, thanks to Jack for sending those over.
They're welcome.
And
they're welcome.
They have a bunch of ridiculously good book battle tactics.
Oh, theirs are so dumb. They're so dumb.
There's get in the boat, get out the boat, clear off an objective, and kill something in your shooting phase.
Those are the battle tactics that, like, not an edition, like a general's handbook would go. It's kind of rage inducing, like when someone would have to jump through like the eye of the needle to get one with their army, and then you guys would be like, "Oh, we do the chicken dance. Here we go."
Well, yeah,
and like all carrot KO things, they come with stipulations. Like you can't just do any of those at any time for any reason, but you can do them. They aren't ridiculously difficult.
I feel like they had more weight when it wasn't as beneficial for the last GHB to take a bunch of wizards, right? Whereas now, wizards can help you get extra tactics to fill in that area, and they're going to be either allying in or up the creek without the battle paddle.
Sure.
So like there's that. I think that may balance them out.
That's fair. One thing I think we should note maybe about the new battle tactics and the relative ease is it's really not the same for everyone, because some of them are real easy depending on army composition your army wants to do. I know I've only played a couple games in the new GHB, but I found it pretty easy to get a spell off and control like that battle tactic if I have a 3d6 cast with Kabbalists. Or it's pretty easy to move my whole army out of like my zone if it wants to do that anyway, and there's no reason to stick back there. But you try that with a static gun line or like a Teklian castle or something, it's just not available to you.
Yeah. And that one, if you look at the maps, there are about 5 maps out of 12 where getting yourself out of your territory is tricky if you have to walk.
Yep.
Yep.
So it's not a turn one kind of deal. I played my friend Johnny with Flesh Eater Courts this week on Wednesday, and we did we did one game where I just sort of like threw myself at him just to see what happens. Because this is the first time really putting the KO on the table. Just wanted to see what was up, and it didn't go well, right? And then we re-racked, ran it back with Johnny sort of going first, and both of us really struggled to get a turn one battle tactic. And I know I just said the battle tactics are easier, and they are generally, but knowing which ones you can get on which missions is actually the secret, right? And so this mission was one of those ones where that walk out of your deployment zone is not a thing that you're going to do turn one, you know?
That's pretty fair, though. Spicy outtake. I know that Matt's been waiting for this cavalry meta for a long time. Maybe it's here.
Maybe it's here. Maybe it's just run everything forward your 10 inches or whatever it is.
I mean, the couple of games that I've had with Dragon Ogres, that's been an easy one for me. So,
Sure.
Even though we lost our amazing hero movement, I was still getting it each time that I needed to do it.
Yeah.
So I've been happy with that one so far. That being said, it is very mission dependent, right? So I've also been lucky in a way, but I found myself taking an equal balance of the BOC book at least and the GHB missions on or the GHB battle tactics as I've been going, which is nice. It's something I'm not used to, coming from almost a year of playing Skaven, which is the dumbest thing that you can do, is rely on your book for battle tactics.
Sure.
So yeah, it's interesting. I think the anti-meta is going to be something that we may see people swinging into, like anti-magic, just to expect it, like a lot of corn.
Oh yeah,
Null
another
Myriad.
one that's up there.
I feel like people like when they announced how the magic was going to work with the primal dice and the different spell lores, the techless stonks just like dropped precipitously, and I feel like they might be coming back, right? Because countering your opponent's magic is just as good as having magic yourself in a lot of ways, you know?
Yeah.
And
100%. Just think about all the lists. Oh, sorry, Miles.
No, I'm just saying Techless is still just as potent as he was, and you can use those primal dice to make sure that those really crucial power of Hish get off when you need them to happen, on those archers or whatever it is you're doing.
Totally fair. And what is it? The discs with letting do auto dispels is super valuable. You were kind of saying it a second ago. It got me all excited because you think about the number of armies that are building in a lot of resources to be able to do something like with the blizzard or with like the whatever it is, like the ice spell Horfrost, or something else they want to do with that extra dice. Well, you can just say nope. Anything that says nope has gone up in value in my book.
Well, and then there's the alternate Matt hot take here. I feel like we're gonna have armies that may show up that just don't care whether or not they have a wizard because they're min-maxed out to hell. Because that spell's only gonna go off 5 times a game, right? So if you have 5 different units that are equally strong, then great. That's one turn, one guaranteed turn of taking it, and the rest, I can see those wizards suddenly becoming very scared for their lives with that spell on them. What was the Mortal Wound spell?
Oh, 46? The blizzard.
Yeah, the blizzard.
Endless blizzard. What do they call it?
Merciless blizzard.
Merciless blizzard. Yeah, not endless, but
I still haven't cast it. I've only tried like once, and I didn't. Obviously, I can't do it with the KO, but
I did once, and it felt so good. Just side anecdote, because if anyone out there is thinking about doing the Merciless Blizzard, do it. Just because the fun factor outstrips any competitive disadvantage. I cast it on a Kragnos. I did like 14 wounds, and then I killed him with that same unit, and it felt great.
I had it casted on me twice, I think, before I got in, and ripped and teared.
Mm.
But I had one at I think it was 13 mortal wounds on a full unit of 6 dragon ogres, which is rough, very rough. And then the next time I think it was like 5 wounds, but it's still I
Oh.
can the look on your opponent's face when you cast that is enough. It's just enough. You can just be like, here you go. You couldn't stop it.
Yeah, it
Well,
pays dividends outside the actual victory,
yeah,
if that even happens.
Yeah.
it's very much a tool to keep them guessing, right?
Oh yeah.
I want to go back to a thing you said earlier, Jack, which maybe it's way earlier at this point, which was that we have this GHB for the next year, right?
Mhm.
And so part of the state of the game is what is going to be happening over this next year. And like, so we know they've said this GHB is for 1 full year. We are expecting that there will be a new edition at the end of that time, right? Based on other context clues. Cities of Sigmar, which we have pontificated about already, look like they're going to be coming out. Flesh Eater Courts probably need a new book. They're, I think, the last standing old second edition book at this point. There's some, I mean, other armies that might need some love, but I think they're the only one that actually has a second edition book.
Yep.
Yeah. But don't forget,
so
there's some spice in there, Miles. We have a whole bunch of like Harbingers, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever books.
exactly, yeah. So
another
3 to 4 sort of campaigny narrative books with potential sneaky war scroll updates and new models for various armies.
Yeah.
So
I imagine a Biggie Piggy.
Yes.
And
that
then
one
an
I feel like
incarnate.
we can feel pretty good about.
Yeah.
Biggie Piggy soon. Give me Biggie Piggy soon. And then an incarnate. We're gonna get an incarnate.
You're 100% right. Can I make a prediction about the incarnate we're gonna get?
It's gonna suck.
No, I think you're wrong about that.
No, it's gonna suck to play against.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I bet it's just gonna be like a big ice ball, like one of those like compacted whiskey balls you can sometimes get for like a fancy drink. And it's gonna just suck up all the ambient magic anyone casts to go Super Saiyan. It'll be like 3 to 4 months away. It'll be a natural counter to all the meta play around wizards, and it'll be annoying. There, that's my prediction.
Nice.
I just want to see like a wannabe Frosty the Snowman.
Oh, and its incarnate levels are just levels of the snowman. So it starts with a 2-layer snowman, it becomes 3-layer, goes down to 1, and finally it melts.
And it's like one of those weird kits where you can like add to it. It'd be like stackable scenery and stuff like that. But eventually over the course of the game, you get, and then at the end you get the carrot, when it's level 5.
I would love that if it was like a Mr. Potato Head model. We're just supposed to add the pieces as you get to certain thresholds.
That'd be so good. It would be so terrible too. You'd lose the pieces immediately,
right away. Feeding into having to buy more kits. It makes sense. There you go.
But so that's what we can kind of look forward to in terms of things that will change the status quo of what we're dealing with. Also, 3 probably battle scroll updates and at least 1 points adjustment.
It'll be a wild ride. For sure.
Yeah.
But let's
but not like, for example, 8 books in 3 months.
Better than that.
Yeah. So there is some things out there that can shake things up, but also we seem to have a period of relative stability in the mortal realms and sort of competitive Sigmar ahead of us.
Yeah, it's almost like we didn't know what to do with this period of calm. I'm still a little fixated just in terms of like this meta right now, and sort of something you guys have said a bit earlier on the counterplay, the counter meta play. I think specifically might have been you, Matt, where if you know you're going to see certain things, you're going to an event, you can tech in for that, and it seems like there's at least early days here, a couple of things you kind of want to be able to do, right? Like a couple examples being, if you know you're going to see a lot of things rely on command points, like maybe the OBR, the Geminids are really good. Maybe the Shards of Alagar are not always the best choice. They can be dispelled in your opponent's turn and thus do nothing. But if you don't want zombies or things popping up in your backfield in your turn, you can cast them to protect yourself against Soulblight. And if Soulblight's a big bad, you're going to face, all of a sudden they're more relevant, stuff like that. I think there's clearer front runners maybe right now, and so there are clearer tech choices.
Yeah.
One for me with the KO is the Voidstone Orb, which is the auto dispel, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
With everybody trying to just sort of have that one wizard that casts that one thing for the battle tactic, it's like, well, now you can't do that. Now you have to do some other battle tactic, or you have to seriously backboard your wizard, and not everybody can afford to backboard their wizard that hard.
Exactly. They can't put him in the corner to like be able to be outside the 30.
Right.
Yeah. I think we see the Knight and Cantor come back. I think
Yeah.
that we're suddenly going to see all of those sell out again soon.
I have mine with the Knight Incantor with the dwarf helmet because it needed to go on the boat.
Nice.
That came in the case of various dwarf things that Jackson made.
Yeah. Oh, that whole army had such a journey. It was sort of intermediary pack muled by our mutual friend Sean.
Yeah.
And it was in my wife's like 30-year-old, because her dad owned it a million years ago, Playboy like traveling case. So it was quite the conversation starter when you see that in the airport.
No, I don't. Sean
That's
got
amazing.
such a hard time, and it's just like a normal suitcase, but around the edges it says Playboy instead of like Samsonite or whatever the hell other suitcases are labeled.
Yeah.
So you're just like, wait, what? But other than that, it's not like there's like you open it up and there's a bunch of like centerfolds taped to the inside or anything like that. It's just like a normal suitcase.
Yeah, no, that other thing would be like an above and beyond discretionary choice, I guess, but not the way it was delivered to Sean.
I was going to say Playboy really let us down with that design fill there.
Yeah. So we made it. Yeah.
So,
but yeah, go for it, Matt.
So I'm wondering how, we have a bunch of magic heavy armies that are coming into this, and there are people that were probably building lists that were feeling really good. And I've heard a lot of really random anecdotal stories about a lot of these heavy magic builds just not performing the way they want. And I can't remember I don't know if it was us talking about it last time or someone else talking about it, but Tzeentch right now apparently is having a rough time with miscasting and exploding on certain missions and then nuking half their army. And I wonder if we will see eventually kind of a move away from super heavy into the magic heavy armies, just because there are so many counters out there now.
Sure. It could just be, light magic is enough,
Yeah, like just having somebody walk around with that spell. And that to me is pretty encouraging, to be honest. Having battle tactics that were entirely dependent on small characters that weren't mounted before was I won't lie, that was a pretty rough time as somebody who likes their orcs on porks, as opposed to orcs on foots.
Orcs on porks. I like that.
So like, I don't know, I feel pretty happy about how I think this meta is going to turn out now that we have that lag time. Like, we haven't had this amount of lag time since, oh man,
start of third ed, maybe.
Yeah, end of second all the way into probably Ideneth Deepkin, I think.
Okay.
Right.
Yep. I think that feels right.
Touching on that thought, Matt, I think we saw a ton of castle-y builds, in the last edition, where you had all these foot heroes which you needed to have, and they were giving you auras or something, and you needed to sort of castle around to protect them because they were going to score. You couldn't allow them to get picked off. And you had to sort of be very careful with them. And Tzeentch, is really, it's a castle build. Sometimes you can move the castle because it's Tzeentch, but like functionally, you have all those really, really squishy, really precious casters, surrounded by what is hopefully an impenetrable wall of summonable demons or whatever, and I think that those castles just aren't as effective at the new battle tactics in the new missions. There's more missions that have high numbers of objectives, You know, there's more 4 to 6 objective missions than there used to be.
Mhm.
There aren't as many sort of easy battle tactics you can just get with a single hero on foot type thing. You know, you have to move out of your, you know, like for example, we were just talking about moving out of your zone. Castle builds don't like to move out of their zone. You know, so I
And
think
sometimes objectives will even turn off. Like, what's the one with the well water? You know, sit on it
yeah,
for 2
exactly.
turns
So you
and you're
cannot
done.
just sit on your laurels and collect VPs, you know?
Yeah, and I think we'll probably see at least probably midway through the GHB kind of a loss of Death Stars. Like we were attaining critical mass there for a couple of armies, just making Death Stars that just kind of run through everything, right?
Sure.
And now that we have 2 spells that can turn one decent unit into a highly offensive unit, or
Sure.
B, just a mortal wound machine, right?
Hmm.
It it may not make sense to condense all of your points into 2 units, right?
Sure. Yeah, you might
So,
want to
Mhm.
just be a little bit more flexible, be a little more reactive, have, you know.
and
It's true.
having speed is going to be fun for that too. So
Hmm.
I'm excited for that part.
So we're seeing I think the big armies out there right now. We talked about Soul Blight, OBR is still up there. Who else?
Slaves to
KO.
Darkness actually were placing pretty high on the last couple of tournaments that I saw.
Nice, nice, good
That's
for
good.
them. You know, they've kind of fluctuated a little bit, but I'm glad to hear that they're on the rise.
Well,
You
it's
know, I think
hilarious. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, they're an army with that big toolbox, and so you know, hopefully, you know, they've got enough things in there that they can find something to build around.
Oh yeah.
I feel like we have an advantage in STD lands with Kabbalists. They're really good at casting in this edition because you can get to 3 dice pretty easily, and then you can mess about with the 4th one if you need a primal. But that makes a lot of things very possible.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I was just about to say Kabbalists are back in vogue. So it's very nice.
Which is fun. Seraphon are kind of in
Um,
the ether.
Yeah. I don't like I don't think I'm ever gonna like Seraphon. I think
No,
I'm
fair enough. You
always
don't have
just
to
gonna
like them.
be angry at them for doing so well.
But
But
no,
now
but
I
are
have no
they
like real argument against them because the models are beautiful and I want to play a Seraphon army. It's just
but are
that
they meta defining, Matt, is the question.
I mean you poke a bear whenever we talk about Seraphon. We know this. Yeah, I think they totally are meta defining, right? Like I
Okay.
think Croak is still gonna be Croak, right? He doesn't even
mhm.
Right.
need any extra dice. So if you want to put your points into other small wizards, I can see like a very sneaky Seraphon army.
Hmm.
Um just rolling up the field, getting things done, and doing what they do best. Um I don't necessarily know if they're going to they have a lot of good counters, but they're still, as far as I'm concerned, like on the edge of an overpowered army.
Sure.
Um, and I think they always will be because of the niche that they have to fill for their playstyle, right?
We're talking Seraphon here, right? And like the Croaks of the world and things like that.
Yeah, and they just have like I guess they've always been this way in Age of Sigmar at the very least. They're either stupidly overpowered or they're going to be bottom of the barrel. But either way, they are rock to scissors, and there are a lot of scissors out there.
I got you.
That seems fair. Well, in terms of other top contenders, we really can't ignore Corn. Blades of Corn is in like
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
some ways they're the best counter to Magic Meta, right? Because they don't have to have a wizard game; they just make every wizard game's day bad.
yeah. They're. I mean, I don't see how they're not going to do well.
Yeah.
That's
I
usually
mean,
up to to the player to fail
so
their games with a lot of
no, exactly.
corn.
They're definitely strong, but also at the same time, they are immediately roped out of 4 of the book of the GHP battle tactics,
Yeah, yeah.
right? That are just completely verboten.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
but their book battle tactics are good. So that's
But
where
they're
it's
at least decent, yeah.
they're good enough to fill the gap, I think, right?
Mhm.
So I see them as
No, I definitely think they're a contender.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Gits, do we think Gits have fallen off the podium?
They've at this point they've kind of gotten triple nerfed, you know. Do we? Yeah, I mean, they definitely still have punch when it happens. I guess the question will just be, is it consistently enough punch?
Yeah.
Yeah, an open question on that, I think.
Who else is up there?
You know who's like
I've
oh,
go
go
for
ahead.
it. Yeah,
No.
I would say I've heard some interesting rumors about Gargants coming back into power.
Interesting.
They still have if I remember right, it's been admittedly a little while since I looked at the book, so but they still have a real arcane tome, you know, a pre-nerf arcane tome in the form of the glowy lantern or the glowy earring. So they can make one of them a wizard and take whatever the hell spell they want. You know, and then because of the sort of decrease in castle builds and Death Star builds, right? I think they start to perform significantly better because you have fewer things that are hitting the damage check that they sort of represent.
I'm right there with you on that. I think that if someone doesn't have a unit or two in their list, they can go run up and kill a Gargant in one go, or close enough to that.
Yeah, enough.
They're gonna fail, you know, on like giving that Gargant player a lot more free reign. And if they're specifically not doing that because they're afraid of that thing becoming a juicy blizzard target, then it does tend to benefit them.
I think another sleeper that's going to come out is Sylvaneth, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tree Lord Ancients suddenly have like a lot more use case now, right? The spell lore from Sylvaneth doesn't necessarily support taking more than one Tree Lord Ancient, I would say. Because you are paying the points for setting down a tree, but now you have the ability to set down a tree wherever you want. If you're having more than one, they have access to some pretty terrifying offensive spells. They have two ways of adding rend to the rest of the army. They also have the easiest way really to get those forward objectives because they have a free tree there. And then you can teleport your tree revs. All of your tree lords can go through it. That's if you're playing extremely like aggressively. Really, this is just me trying to get the guts to actually play my Sylvaneth army I've been working on for like 5 years. But I feel like they're a sleeper that will somehow sneak up higher and higher and higher as the GHB goes on.
I mean, I think, you know, if you look at like the T Sports rankings and that kind of stuff, they're still, you know, top middle for sure. You know, obviously the data is still really early on that again, because we haven't had enough events to really have strong statistical confidence in those things. But yeah, I don't see why they wouldn't be a decent. I remember that 2-up cast that they have. What an excellent way to get that one battle tactic.
Yeah,
you know,
easy peasy lemon squeezy.
5-6 at a time.
Yeah. So yeah, any of those factions again that have that either an unbreakable cast or a auto unbind, you know, I feel like that is something to watch out for, you know. So like OBR with the Dark Acolyte, where like if you naturally cast the spell, it cannot be unbound. KO the spell in the bottle, that's a spell, it can't be unbound. I wonder if Tzeentch's free they get a free endless spell. Now you probably wouldn't want Tzeentch to, they'd probably have to cast a whole bunch of spells anyway because they're looking for, you know, summoning points and that kind of stuff. But does that count as a spell that's unbreakable or unbindable?
Now I've been building my all chariot list because of course I have, and I finally got everything put together.
Which all chariot list is this?
Oh, for Tzeentch.
Okay.
So all burning chariots of Tzeentch. Oh yeah, that at that point it's gonna just be a meme of me riding in on a chariot.
There's a guy there's a guy up in Northern Ireland, Colin Cochran, fantastic guy who's running way more Stormcast chariots than is otherwise advisable, and he's been doing fantastic with them.
They're never going to be a bad unit for what they are. They could go up like 25 more points, almost 40 more points, and still be a unit that I'd be like, yeah, I'll take that. I'm fine with that.
The Storm Strike chariots do like way more work than most chariots. I mean, like compare them to my Slaneshi ones, not the same league.
Well, and they're just little mini castles. Like you can get them to a 1+ save easy, and then they can just sit there and go right and hold a line far longer than something than they should expect to. But I think the spell that Siege puts down, and I'm looking for it right now. I'm just very slow. Welcome to map being slow.
Okay.
I think that goes down before the game starts.
Okay, so it doesn't
before
it doesn't
priority is rolled. Yeah.
And it might not matter because they're going to want to cast a bunch of spells anyway, and you wouldn't take that battle tactic, and it's not like they're hurting for battle tactics anyway. I was just thinking,
absolutely. Well, just because there's kind of an open question still, guys, is in this spicy new realm that we find ourselves in, how do we prepare for tournaments, knowing all these things, or at least conjecturing on all these things? I mean, and what does that look like in a practical sense?
Sure. I mean, I think some advice that like always obviously like get a good night's sleep, pack yourself a granola bar, like, all of those good things, make sure you go to the bathroom before your first game begins, all that good stuff.
Yeah, don't start day one, round one with the 9% breakfast beer.
Exactly. So like but in terms of like tournament prep that doesn't also apply to the SATs, I think there's a guy here who does it sort of religiously, and we give him a hard time for it, but it's actually a very good practice, which is to practice your deployments. So he'll go to the shop on a day where he doesn't have a game, and he'll just set up his army as if he is deploying for this game for a mission, tweak it until he really likes the setup, and then break it all down, set up the next mission, deploy his army as if he's playing that mission, tweak it, and just sort of go through every single mission, so that when it comes, when it comes to the actual game, he had a plan, and whether that plan gets thrown off or whatever, maybe your opponent does something wonky that you have to react to, but there was a plan, and it's set up to make sure that there is a battle tactic he can do turn one in every mission.
It's sort of funny. I think that what he's doing is 100% a great idea in terms of preparation and practice, but I also have to laugh too, just thinking of how crazy that would look. Just got
no, it looks like an insane. Yeah, he looks like an insane person. Yeah,
I mean, he can do it at home too. If you're really self-conscious about it, just do it at home.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that's a great strategy for figuring it out, especially on like smaller deployment, or if you are practicing to do that one battle tactic, right? Learn how you want to deploy to get everybody there, and then roll the dice. Roll the dice to make sure you can do it.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's the big secret. The missions now are weird, for lack of a better descriptor. And making sure that you have a game plan going into every single one, even the ones that you think are not likely to show up.
That's fair. Like, because even the simplest of them, where it's like, here's a couple, objectives, not too many, straightforward deployments. Like, oh, by the way, everyone's under a partial eclipse. 3 have to do 2 command points instead of 1. Stuff like that is like, very much more disruptive than we've seen in some other iterations.
I mean, for me, I'd say gamble in your practice games. Put yourself in situations that are 60-40, right? Say like, I can do that if I get this done, run for the crazy things to see, to get it out of your system,
Sure.
and then B, you know, find out what it would have taken you to get to that point where you would have either
Sure.
scored that battle tactic, like how, there's a designer ethos of fail constantly, right?
Mhm.
Fail constantly as much as you can so that you can learn, you can learn how to get past that and win, right?
Mhm.
That's pretty fair. Well, it's
and it's an ethos that I would much rather lose as many games as I could in a practice game. Well, obviously giving somebody a fun time in their
Yeah,
game,
yeah,
but I would much rather lose in a ton of practice games to be prepared to say, oh, okay, I know my unit can't do that when I'm in the crunch time.
sure.
So let's go to this other battle tactic that may be a stretch on paper, or, may be done just a little bit early in this game, but it's guaranteed, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I had a good moment like that yesterday or Wednesday, when playing with these KO really for the first or second time, and it is always a terrible idea to split your shots, and
Mhm.
it's always the most tempting thing to do. And with this new book, I really don't have the reps to have a good understanding of what the damage output of half a giant Thunderer's unit is going to do. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really difficult. So until you have those expectations of like, I know in this type of scenario what the output of this unit actually is, so then you can make those more risky plays in a calculated way when you have to.
Yeah.
Right. But you don't know it until you've tried it. And I found out that half a Thunderer unit can't kill 6 crypt horrors. So
See, this is exactly, I think, like a really pivotal thing that kind of goes with what Matt was saying too, where you have to fail. You have to like try it enough times to realize
yeah,
that that won't work, and then build like a muscle memory. Because if you
yeah,
try it once, you might get lucky and then kind of shoot the moon, and then you would have like this bad idea in your head for when it comes up
right.
again. But maybe you have like a 2 out of 3 chance of it just whiffing because the
Yeah.
math isn't there. So I think that's really valid, but it kind of brings up an interesting point about tournament prep, and that there's the idealized tournament prep, and then there's like, hey, real world, we're all trying to do our things in life, and then also go to the tournament prep, where
Sure.
maybe you don't have enough reps to do that. I mean, unless you're sort of like in a monastic cell playing Warhammer, like an idealized state for
Sure. In your little yellow robe and everything. Yeah.
exactly.
In that case, and like I would still shoot for lose your game that you're playing, right?
Before the tournament, right? This is
Lose the games that you're playing before the tournament. If and this goes more to just like learning the limits of your army. We all math hammer everything out like, oh, that's improbable, and that's exactly when it happens, is when you were so sure that something is going to fail. He's not going to roll 16, or he's not going to roll 12 mortal wounds on me. That's
right.
That's illogical, right? That's exactly when it happens, because you've immediately ruled it out. In
As
playing a dice
possibility.
game for some reason. And so
Yeah.
like I would say, like, even if you're down to lower games, imagine how you're going to fail, take the chances then so that you know not to take them later. Even if you're only getting one game in, knowing the limits of your units, not just on paper but in context of a game that is consistently changing and morphing on you, whether you're getting double turned, whether you suddenly get the double turn when you weren't expecting it at all, because your dice rolls were going bad for the entirety of the game up to that point, or casting spells, etc., etc. Knowing the limits of your units is, I think, more important than imagining their capacity.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think to Jack's idea, maybe you don't have the chance to do your deployment prep for every single mission. but maybe yeah, you do it in your house. But maybe the tournament you're going to has posted the missions in advance or something, or you can be pretty sure that they're not going to do towers in the tundra or whatever's ends up being the instant win mission this time around that nobody seems to put in the tournament pack.
That's a very good point. It's like work smart, not hard. If you have limited time to do all of it, but there's going to be 5 missions, well, then you can just prepare for those.
Right.
If
and
you know any other things about it.
Exactly. From a philosophical standpoint, there should be an equal chance of. I think there should be an equal chance of encountering any mission, and you should prepare as though that is the case. But that is actually not the reality, and we saw that last GHB because I think. Was it Honest Wargamer had some stats on missions from tournaments throughout the last GHB, and like probably, twists and turns was like 1%.
Yeah, 1% which is sad. Played. Super sad.
Yeah, I mean it's a shitty mission. It was like I don't want to be negative about this, but like it was a tough mission. It was very swingy, and it was frequently lost through no fault of your own.
Yeah, not beloved of the tournament scene or people who want to win games based on skill.
I can argue that I can argue the opposite side, that if you want to make sure that you're doing it right, you can just table your opponent and then you have all the objectives. So, if you want to build into winning only that mission, then you can do that.
No, that's true. That's a good
point. Very fair.
I would say like little things too are always really helpful for me when I'm prepping for a tournament. Knowing how many dice I have for a unit, like one of the things I try and practice is making sure that I'm like not super holding up my opponent when I'm playing, because for me, there's nothing worse than walking away from a game and being like, wow, I just wasted a ton of their time trying to fiddle around and do random stuff, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
And so what I'll do is I'll have like a pre-count that I'll pull out my dice, have them ready. Okay, I know that I've got 23 attacks coming from this unit. One of them is going to be a special attack that will have a different profile. Okay, cool. Let's make sure I have 2 sets of dice, one with a different color, and I can get used to pointing out so that they can see as I'm rolling. Another huge thing, I'm never going to not say it, is just AOSreminders.com. Go and print out a sheet of everything that you have. You can review it ahead of time. Here are the battle tactics that I can use on this mission. Here are the ones from my book. Here is, all of the spells. I can review this. I can have this front of mind, or I can have it available if it's not front of mind and I'm flustered.
I think that's really fair.
Yeah, here's a contentious take. Practice with a chess clock.
Yes.
No matter what your feeling is about chess clocks in tournaments, whatever, you will get faster at the game if you play with a chess clock, because it just forces good time management on your part. It is, I have found it is way more about managing your own time as opposed to managing your opponent's time, in terms of like, and there are really good people who can weaponize chess clocks at very high levels of competition, but you and your opponent at your local store are not going to be those people. So practice that way. Even if you run out of time, the act of doing it will give you, like just the act of having to press the button whenever you're done will give you a sense of like, oh, that was a really long turn. I need to speed that up.
I totally agree with that. I mean, it's a feedback mechanism to tell you, yeah, you took a long time.
Yeah,
maybe that's a place to look for improvement, or just to be more conscious of it.
And honestly, that's where I got the dice practice from, was playing in chess clocks early 8th edition 40k, because I had an all splinter rifle, splinter racks army, which took forever to play, re-rolling ones on gunboats and then blasters and yada yada yada. So I had to figure out, okay, I'm wasting a ton of time trying to figure out which dice goes to what. Have my dice pre-counted, I can just roll them and then they're good to go. The chess clock will most definitely help you find pieces of your play style that can be improved upon, or just new answers to problems you didn't realize you were creating, right?
Yeah.
100%. So maybe another potential one, in terms of a good time saver to throw in there for prep would be, if you have the opportunity to, and it's like the night before the tournament or whatever, and you can see like what the factions are coming in from, like your BCP or whatever. Just have an extra big think about the ones that seem to be prevalent. You know, I feel like if you know there's like 10 Stormcast Eternals players and there's 30 people in the tournament, think about the Stormcast and what you'll do in those situations.
Sure.
And sort of that kind of thing.
And if you don't have access to those lists, don't bug your TO about it.
Yeah, that
Go
feels bad.
and buy a BCP subscription. This episode has been brought to you by BCP.
We have like a lot of free sponsorships. Jeez.
Be nice to your TO, both pre and post. I just want to say this. Your TOs have a thankless job. So respect and
100%
love
on
them
that.
for what they do, damn it.
Well, maybe on that bombshell, we should call it an episode. Respect your TOs, and the game is in a state. So that's what we've covered today.
I'm not crying
Exactly.
at all. I'm not crying at all.
I'm reflecting about how I need to respect my TOs as much as possible as I drink my coffee from this ASL branded coffee cup. See,
There we
guys,
go. They're
they sponsored
available
us
on
too.
Redbubble.
There we go. We're just throwing sponsors out left and right. One of those being our own.
Yeah, well, I figured we'd break yourselves in the mix there too. It seems like it's open season.
Yeah, might as well.
Sounds good. Well, thanks to everybody for listening all the way to the end and for joining us today. It's been a good episode. What do you guys think?
Yes.
I think we're striking last.
Striking last now and forever.
Yep. We did it.
Oh, I hit the wrong button.
Damn it.
Still can't find the button. Where the stupid button? There.